I'm talking with Kurt Stammberger, who's Senior VP of Marketing Development at Norse. Welcome, Kurt.
Hi, Richard.
So good to see you. There's so much to learn about, where Norse has come from and where they're going. And I love this story because Norse I treated as a pivot originally. Is that kind of how you take it too?
Yeah, I think the company really started off as servicing payment providers, and in the process of doing that work, we found that the actual intelligence that we were gathering from the sensors that we were deploying in doing that function was actually more valuable than the software that we were originally selling. So the company took a hard turn into threat intelligence, and we now have the world's largest privately owned, dedicated threat intelligence network.
Give me a feel for that, global span of that and what those sensors are doing.
It's surprisingly large for the size of our company. Norse is only about 100 employees, but we are deployed across almost 200 data centers, 47 countries around the world, and more than 8 million sensors right now. So we have terrific visibility, especially into really difficult to penetrate nooks and crannies of the internet, like the dark nets, the deep web, and tough to penetrate geographies.
So help me understand how having remotely deployed sensors is so important in all these different regions.
It's really important to have sensors deployed externally to a company. And this is actually fundamental to one of the things that we've learned about internet security in the past few years. I think that you and I have both been in this business for a long time, both of us over 20 years, and we're only now starting to realize that security is really a big data problem. And why is it a big data problem? Well, up until now, we've been using microscopes and peering inside of our organizations and really analyzing packets and information and data flows inside of our particular company. And now it turns out that the pendulum has really swung the other way, and now the prevailing opinion is that a better way to do this is to look outside the organization with much larger tools, gather a lot more information about what's happening on the internet outside. And if I can detect an attack that's happening to another company over there, or a hurricane that's heading to me, down by Cuba, I can batten down the hatches at my company and protect my company before that attack is even targeted at me in the first place. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about being able to preemptively block attacks that have not hit an organization yet, and then being able to open those hatches again, open those ports again when you get the all clear. And that's a fundamentally different way of dealing with security.
So, I think of this as IP reputation, but scaled up to every IP address.
Right.
Right. So now I know from talking to Sam Glines in the past,
your
CEO, you will do, you might at any one time have 4 million bad IP addresses.
Yeah. We rescore millions of IP addresses any day, and we have one of the offerings that we put on the market is IP reputation service. Basically allows you to do instant background checks on any IP or URL address. We publish that as something called the Norse threat list. You can subscribe to that, and it is roughly at any given second the 5 million worst IP addresses on the internet, and we update that every 5 seconds. So that's a live feed that people can subscribe to. But then there are much more complex and much more value-added offerings that Norse builds on top of that fundamental reputation feed. But you're right, the key insight, the key thing that people are starting to realize is that, and I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit here, I would say that when we go to the RSA conference 2019 or 2020, 4 or 5 years from now, you will not be able to buy a piece of security hardware or security software that does not have an integrated live intelligence stream as part of it. It would be a little bit like trying to be a hedge fund trader without a real-time access to the NASDAQ feed.
Yep.
Or using yesterday's newspaper to trade stocks.
Or
It's
an
just
OS vendor without an update.
Right, exactly.
Or an antivirus without
exactly. And when you think about it, it's surprising that it's taken us this long as an industry to get that. We've been so busy peering inside of our organizations that we haven't been looking out the window to see what the weather is outside.
I have to tell you, in 1995, I was working for one of the very first MSSPs.
I was still at RSA.
Yeah. And we kept a running list of IP addresses that we had seen attacking our customers. And
On a yellow pad?
Yeah,
or an
spreadsheet.
Lotus 123.
Yeah, most of them were from China. And I had this brilliant idea. I said, wow, we could publish that and sell that list to people.
And you never did?
We never did.
Oh.
Yeah. So here we are today. You've taken that all the way to the level of let's look at all the IP addresses all the time.
Right, and in fact, there are a lot of companies that do that. And threat intelligence is, I would say, arguably the hottest field in security right now. It is the buzz of 2015 here at RSA conference, and there are dozens of companies that do threat intelligence, and the field is growing so fast, so quickly, that there really isn't a lot of consensus over what threat intelligence really is.
Yep.
So you see a lot of vendors using the word threat intelligence, but it's important if you're a consumer or if you're a CISO buyer to understand precisely what you're getting or precisely what you want to purchase when you're buying threat intelligence services, because they vary a lot.
Yeah. And we know that it's exploding because now there's a middle layer of threat intelligence management platforms that consume all the feeds, rationalize them, and then spit them out to the SIMs or whatever security analytics people are using.
Right. Well, to go back to that telescope analogy that I was using before, different companies in threat intelligence, I like to use this analogy, have different types of telescopes. Norse is especially good at looking at dark nets, the deep webs, and difficult to penetrate geographies. So let's say we've got an X-ray telescope. Other companies, have infrared telescopes or visible light telescopes. And what we find sophisticated customers doing, and those sophisticated customers are usually stock exchanges, financial industry, banks, military. They're actually cobbling together their own meta intelligence feeds from several different vendors and trying to form a more holistic picture of the universe in all frequencies, if we're going to extend the metaphor. And I think that's an interesting area of growth for the industry. I think that there is going to be a fair amount of sharing and consolidation that happens as the threat intelligence industry matures.
Some of the early threat intelligence vendors, ones who do a lot of the in the weeds, physical people present in infiltrating hacker communities, and then they don't sell feeds as much as reports, playbooks. They come back and they say that their customers that they're approaching, banks and such, say, wow, this is great. We can see the need for it, but we don't have anybody internally who would know what to do with this information. So come back to us next year.
Right.
Which is always a sign of extended sales cycles, which is the death knell for any startup. Have you seen a change in that over the last 18 months? Or people just buying because they need it?
I would say that companies are still opting for a lot of professional services early on in threat intelligence purchase cycles, even banks and even sophisticated customers, because any threat intelligence solution will need a certain amount of on-site tuning. The way that we score risk for any given IP, so we have a particular algorithm, and it's actually an actuarial algorithm based on insurance risk assignments. It considers 1,500 different variables and assigning one number risk score from 0 to 100 for a given IP. Well, that's a starting point, and that algorithm may not weight the same factors for each industry, the way each industry might want them weighted. And in fact, as you know, in enterprise sales, the larger the deal, the more likely it is that an enterprise customer will say, well, actually, we want geography weighted a little bit differently than your algorithm does it. So we dive in there and we tweak the algorithm for them or give them the tools they need to do that. But to your point saying that even after we install this hardware and this solution for them, they still feel understaffed from an analyst or a security professional standpoint. I'd say that's a symptom of a larger problem in the industry, that security budgets for enterprise security efforts have stagnated at about 3.8% of total IT spend for the past 7 years, while attacks have been growing at a compound annual growth rate of 66% a year. So as an industry, as security professionals, we are falling behind the curve. And I don't think that a CSO or really any IT professional that says we need more people to handle this, that's not unique to threat intelligence solutions. They're having that problem managing all of their security solutions right now.
It reminds me of car insurance, and if you forget to renew your policy and you discover that 3 months later and you quick pay it, you look back at it and you go, wow, I just got 3 months of free car insurance because I didn't need it.
Unless they backbill you.
Right, unless they backbill you. But the same thing in security is we've underinvested over all these years, and all that time where you weren't breached, you just got really lucky. And you've got to start paying for it now.
Individual, and individual companies that I think all large enterprises get this now. If you look at, say, our Norse attack map, which is everyone's favorite piece of eye candy at map.norsecorp.com. How's that for a plug? But check it out. It's great to show your boss because a lot of bosses or CEOs, I won't say CIOs because they're very smart, but maybe the CEO isn't quite aware that attacks are not an occasional occurrence. They might read about a hack, the Target hack or the Sony hack in the Wall Street Journal every couple of weeks, but they're not aware of the voraciousness of the ocean in which we swim. And when you show them a map like that, which is dialed down by a factor of 1,000, in fact, we only pick 1 out of every 1,000 events and map it, and still that map looks like a fireworks display. You're talking 30, 40, 50,000 attacks every minute. And every enterprise is under constant barrage. Nobody knows this better than the banks, who on average lose over $20 million a year to hacks.
So then Norse, in addition to providing a feed, decided you needed an appliance that could consume the feed because there's a lack of appliances that could do that, right?
Right. Like I said, we've only as a community, I think, realized that security is in fact a big data problem. We've been in denial for a long time. So most of the appliances that are on the market right now, firewalls and SIEMs, have caches that can handle 20,000 IP addresses or 50,000 bad IP addresses. But they can't handle a list of, say, 5 million, 10 million, or 100 million bad IP addresses. And that's what they need to do. And not only that, but they need fiber optic connections so that those lists can be updated not once a day, but second by second by second. You're starting to see this shift. You're starting to see those caches on next generation firewalls and SIEMs get much larger. But until then, we've come out with our own dedicated threat intelligence appliance, which we think is a really good way to solve the problem, because you have a box that now you're installing in your data center. It handles all of your interaction with your threat intelligence vendor. It has an always-on 10 gigabit per second connection. and it completely offloads your SIM and your firewall. So your SIM doesn't have to process tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of additional events, because all of those events have been pre-filtered and pre-vetted by the dedicated threat intelligence appliance. And they're only getting fed the really important stuff.
I was talking to a CISO of a major New York exchange, and he came to me and totally unsolicited. He said, "Yeah, I got that Norse stuff, dropped it in front of the firewall, and within an hour I got a call from the firewall guy saying, 'What'd you do? We're not seeing anything anymore.'" And no firewall alerting was going on. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, there's two
reference.
ways we see people deploying this in two ways, and it's interesting that our customers learn a lot about what's going on with their current security infrastructure by experimenting with this. So if they put the Norse appliance in front of their existing firewalls, they can have it block, say, everything above a 90 and drastically offload the firewalls and the SIMs behind it. If you put the Norse appliance in back of those firewalls, you actually can find out everything that firewall is missing by just kind of ratcheting up the risk score until a point where you start catching more and more of those particles, and then you can analyze those attacks and see, well, do I really care about those getting through? Maybe you don't, but maybe there is some stuff getting through with your firewall, and it can help you tune your existing security infrastructure. So the best application that we see of this technology is really helping people improve the return on investment that they've already made. This huge investment in the security infrastructure that they've made in their enterprise over the past 5, 10, 15 years. They really don't want to spend more money on yet another box, yet another appliance. But that's not what we're selling them. We're selling them an appliance that makes all of the rest of their appliances work better.
I like it. So how are you going to market? Are you going through channels? Do you have a channel organization set up?
We have a small channel organization set up, and right now our primary channel is a channel partner named Accuvant. We're signing on additional channel partners, but primarily our go-to-market strategy is direct, and we do direct deals with large Fortune 500 financial firms and government agencies and high-tech firms as well. Those are our three target markets.
And you're collecting data from all around the world? Are you selling all around the world yet?
We are selling, most of our business is in the United States and Canada. We recently closed a very large deal with the Department of Energy, a $3.2 million deal as the primary contractor for their CRISP threat information sharing program that protects the nation's electrical grid. We're the primary contractor on that DOE contract, supplying the data, the analysis, and the consulting and integration. And FireEye is supplying the boxes as the subcontractor. We've also recently closed a very large deal with an important U.S. ally in the Persian Gulf. And we plan an aggressive expansion in that region as well.
Great. It sounds like you're on a roll. It was great getting caught up with you, and I want to thank you once again. Thanks, Chris.
Great to see you again, Richard. Thanks.